Welcome back to the Credible Dev YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk about some things you should consider doing whenever you first install Manjaro. Specifically, I'm on the KDE edition right now. I just set this up on my machine. I've done a few things to it already, but I thought it would be a good time to go over some of the things you should think about doing when you first set it up. Before we get into that, I want to thank you for checking out this video and my channel. If you enjoy this content, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to my channel. I really do appreciate it. Also, I'll have lesson 5 of the bash scripting lessons up here pretty soon. So if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to go back and check out that playlist on my channel to get caught up with it. And let's go ahead and jump into today's video. And the first thing that you would want to do whenever you install Manjaro is update your system. You also want to update the mirrors so that way you get your updates and things as fast as possible. So in order to do that, there's a couple of ways. You can do this from the command line, or you can do it from pacman, which is the GUI interface for managing your application. So to get to that, you can click this up arrow that's got the circle around it, or you can go to your menu here and go to System or Settings. You'll find it in both places, this Add Remove Software. So if we launch that, and in order to set up the mirrors, you'll click on this hamburger icon, and you'll go to Preferences, and you'll need to put in your password here. And if you scroll down, you'll see Official Repositories and Use Mirrors From, and you're going to want to go to this drop down and select the place closest to you. And after you do that, you're going to click on Refresh Mirrors, and it'll take a minute or two to collect all those mirrors and get everything set up for you, and then you've got that set up. You can move on to updating your system. So to update your system in the same interface, you can go to Updates, and any available updates that you have after installation will appear here, and you can simply install those. If you would rather do these things from the terminal, pull up your terminal, and to update the mirrors, you would type sudo pacman -mirrors and then space fast track, and you would hit enter, and it'll go through the mirrors and set those up for you. And then to update your system, you'll type sudo pacman space $SYYU, and that will update any packages that you have on your system. So if we run that, it should come back with nothing, and we can see there's nothing to do. The next thing that you'd want to do is install any additional drivers. So if you have a GPU like AMD, NVIDIA, or other hardware that may need additional drivers, the way that you check that is, again, go to the menu here, and I believe it's under Settings. Yeah, Settings, and then go to Manjaro Settings Manager. Pull this up, and you'll have an option for hardware configuration. You double click on that. This interface will list any available drivers for your hardware here. And this particular laptop that I have, it doesn't have a specific GPU. It's just the one that comes on board, so I don't have really anything listed here to change. But you may see additional options here that you might want to consider. Also in this interface, while we're here, the kernel application here, if you go into that, this will allow you to install and switch to different kernels. So you can see I'm on the latest non-experimental version of the kernel, which runs perfectly fine. But if you wanted to or needed to go back to a different version, or you wanted to try an experimental version, then you can do that here pretty easily. So the next thing that you would want to do is enable Flatpak support, which we can do here in the pacman interface. But go back to this hamburger icon, and we go to Preferences, go to Third Party up here at the top, scroll down a little bit. If you had the AUR enabled, it might have pushed it down some, but scroll down, you'll see Flatpak, and you can tick the Flatpak option on, and if you want to, you can tick on the option for checking for updates. Once you've done this, you won't see Flatpaks most likely appearing in the search if you try to search for an app. So what you need to do is go back to this hamburger icon, and you're going to click refresh databases. After that, you could check it again, but in my experience, you end up having to restart your computer before you would be able to go and search for Flatpaks within pacman. You can still install them from the command line if you want to, which you can get the install commands from the FlatHub website, which let me pull that up and show it to you real quick in case you're not familiar with it. This is the FlatHub repository where you can view apps. So if we like click on Flatsil here, for instance, if you scroll down here to the bottom, it'll give you the command line that you can run in order to install this application. It'll show this for all the applications that they offer. But once you restart your computer, you'll be able to just use this search and find FlatHub applications in here. So now that you got FlatHub enabled, I would definitely suggest that you install any applications that you can as Flatpaks through FlatHub if they're available. If they're not, then I would suggest installing them from the official Manjaro repository, which when you look at apps in here, it'll say official repository. That means that it's from the Manjaro repository. And later on, we'll enable the AUR to install some fonts, and those will show up as AUR under the application name. The AUR is the Arch user repository. It's packages that are managed by individuals. They're not officially supported. You can run into issues with them. I've never had too many issues, but it can be risky. So if you can avoid the AUR, then you should, but there are a lot of cases where you need to fall back on it, which we have an example of that in this video later. So if you want to know more about that, I have a blog post up. I'll link it down in the description that kind of goes over some of the stuff with AUR that might interest you. So you want to install any software. Software that I typically install is VS Code, OBS Studio, Kdenlive, Discord. I always install Flatsil. Flatsil allows you to adjust the permissions of your Flatpak installed applications. So if you need to give a particular application more permissions to, say, your file system, you can easily do that through Flatsil. It's very handy. I also install Microsoft Edge, which I know is probably a touchy subject for some people, but because of my job, I'm very much in the Microsoft ecosystem, which includes Edge, and I've become pretty reliant on Edge. I really like it. It performs better for me on my system than Firefox or Chrome. Firefox does come installed on the KDE version of Manjaro, so I do have it there by default, and I do use it some, but most often I'm in Microsoft Edge. So you can install all those things from Flatpaks. So the next thing that we're going to do is, if you work with Microsoft Office documents a lot, you may find on Linux that you run into some compatibility issues or things don't display properly, and a lot of that stems from Microsoft fonts. So to install Microsoft fonts, there's a couple of things that you need to do. One is you need to enable the AUR. So to do that, go back to this hamburger icon and go to Preferences where we were before, Password, and under third party again, you want to tick on this Enable AUR Support. And it's going to give you a bunch of other options here. You can choose what you want. I just left it as the defaults because I don't really care about any of this. And then we're going to go to the terminal, and we're going to install base development packages. To do that, we type in sudo pacman -S, and then we type in base-devel for base development. This is going to install the development packages that are needed to build packages from the AUR, because the AUR packages are built from source and you need additional build tools in order to do that. So you run this command to install it, which I already have installed, but we'll go ahead and run it again. And once you have that installed, now you can install the Microsoft fonts using a AUR helper. In this case, we're going to use Yay. So you need to install Yay, and we do that using pacman too. So we type in sudo pacman space dash capital S Yay. We'll install that. Now you have an AUR helper that will allow you to install AUR packages. Now you can install AUR packages from here too, but sometimes it's just more convenient just to pull up the command line and do it from there. So to install the fonts, we won't use sudo. We'll just type Yay and then dash capital S and then TTF ms dash win10 dash auto, and that will be our Microsoft fonts. When you run this command, it'll take a while to process because it's building all this from source, and a lot of applications, especially larger applications, can take quite some time to build from the AUR. I'm not going to run this here because I already have the fonts installed, but you'll want to run this command and then you'll have the Microsoft fonts available. The next thing that we'd want to do is enable a firewall. By default, the KDE version of Manjaro doesn't come with a firewall installed, so we want to set one up. And what I suggest to do, it's the easiest way to get started, is to install the UFW firewall, but we're going to install the GUI interface. It's referred to as GUFW. So we can just search that here, or you could do it from the command line using pacman. Up to you. So we'll type in GUFW, and I already have it installed, but again, it doesn't come installed by default on the KDE version of Manjaro. So you would just search it here, and you'll have a little down arrow here instead of the trash can like I have. You'll click that, and then you'll click install or apply down here at the bottom right. And once you have it installed, you can find it in your menu by just typing firewall, or you could type in GUFW if you wanted, and then run it. You'll need to put in your password. And I already have it enabled, but by default it'll be disabled. And you'll just click this little status slider here to enable it. And the default rule is to deny any incoming traffic and allow all outgoing traffic, which is fine for most setups. If you do need to allow something, like maybe you have a web server running on your machine, you can just go to rules and add those rules in there for whatever you need. Very easy to set up and work with, so I definitely recommend it. So another thing that we need to do is set up backups. Backups are very important. I mean, you don't want to go through all this work of setting up your machine, getting all your applications installed, and then, you know, something happens like your hard drive crashes or something becomes corrupted on the machine and you need to go back to a backup. It's important to have those available. So there is a backup utility already installed on most Manjaro distributions. The KDE one already has it installed. It is called Time Shift. You can find it in your menu. Just type in time and you'll see it listed here as Time Shift. When configuring your backups, I suggest that you do them on an external drive or a separate hard drive at least, because if something happens to the hard drive that your system's installed on and you are also backing up your system to that same drive, well, you've obviously lost your backup too. So it's important to have a separate drive. You can get a USB external drive or whatever you want and do your backups to that drive to keep them safe and separate from your system in case something were to happen. And the last thing that I'd like to go over is customizing. So one thing you're definitely going to want to customize if you have more than one monitor is your display configuration. You can see I already have mine configured, but it's a real easy interface, very similar to what you may have experienced on Windows or other systems. You can just drag your monitor around wherever you want and then hit apply. You can change the resolutions and the orientation here. Makes it very easy. And to get to that, you just right click on your desktop and go to configure display settings. Another customization you'd want to do would be to the look of your install altogether. So to do that, go to settings and go to system settings. And in the appearance tab here, you'll have a few different ways that you can modify your system. So you have global themes, which are going to adjust a lot of things: icons, colors, the way the windows look, the close, minimize buttons, things like that. You could choose a global theme. You can get more global themes by clicking this Get New Global Themes, and you'll get a list of other themes that people have uploaded here. So you might want to check those out. If you want to make additional customizations to one of these themes, then you can just go down through these options. So you can change the application style, plasma style, colors, window decorations, the fonts, the icons, and more. There's a lot of different options in here. So definitely want to customize your setup, set a new wallpaper, things like that. Make it your own. That's a lot of what Linux is about, is the customization that you can do in addition to the free and open source software that's available. So lastly, before we end this video, I just want to make a suggestion that you also install a VPN. VPNs have become pretty important these days to keep your privacy protected. I'm not sponsored by any type of VPN provider, but I use ExpressVPN personally. I've used other ones like Proton VPN, but ExpressVPN for me works the best. There are ways to set up ExpressVPN on Manjaro. You can even have a little GUI application that allows you to connect and disconnect like you would on Windows. But like I said, there's many ways to configure a VPN through the network settings, for example, through the command line. I have some blog post up about how to get started with ExpressVPN if that's something you're interested in. There is no referral or affiliate link involved. It's just, if you want to use ExpressVPN, I already have some helpful guides to get you going with it. And also, if you're like me and you work with Microsoft applications, you may want to consider setting up OneDrive, which I have some videos about and blog posts to help you set up OneDrive no matter which Linux distro that you're using, including Manjaro, for instance. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope it helped you out. You found it interesting. If you did, please consider hitting that like button, subscribing to my channel. Hope everybody has a great Friday and a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.